welcome to the Ogden Amateur Radio meeting. It's November, right? So we're in November. It's been a rough week. I've got a few announcements for us, and we're going to be talking about a few others here. We have Mel Parkes here with us today. He's going to give us a thing about the ARRL, right? Yep. I've told you guys before about the ARRL. I'll continue to do so for as long as I'm president of the club, just because I understand what it is that they do. Mel explained it to me when I first became a member, and I became a life member of the ARRL. Right now they're standing up for our rights, doing some fights in Congress and whatnot, so it's a good thing, and I'm sure Mel will talk about those a little bit. He's also going to give us a little bit more information about the Utah Ham Fest, and it looks like Pat came out and you brought this in?
Yeah.
Yeah, this display here.
I'm offering moral support.
Yeah. This is a great little display, but I'm kind of excited about that because it's right here in our own backyard. It'll be up here at the Weber State University Shepherd Union building. So right across the valley here. Now they have a repeater on top of their building somewhere out there, and we don't use it for nothing. Are we going to be able to use it for something when that's going on?
I still want to find out if that repeater is still active.
Oh, well, okay.
It was about a year ago.
Yeah. So someone might be maintaining it. Yes.
There's a building out almost by the football field that repeater is in. It's not on top of the building.
Okay.
In that higher part around there.
Just up back behind the. Okay. I think I know where you're talking about. There is a de-expedition going on November 25th and 26th, or November 25th through December 4th. It's over in Montserrat. They'll be operating on frequencies between 160 and 6 meters. So if you're interested in getting Montserrat as a contact, that'll be available. There will be a space station presentation in 2019. They haven't nailed down anything permanent on that yet. It'll be over at Lakeside Elementary in West Point. There is a test session coming up if you're looking to upgrade. It'll be December 5th at 7 p.m. You can register at hamstudy.org. It'll be over at the Clearfield City Hall. And then we have our Christmas dinner coming up. That's next month. That'll be, so there won't be a regular club meeting, right?
Right.
Just be the Christmas party, and that'll be the third Saturday, the 15th of December, and that'll be over at Golden Trough in Ogden. December 8th, there will be a safety fair in Syracuse. I'm not sure exactly where that's at. Anybody remember where that's at? Probably at the Civic Center in Syracuse, but I couldn't find anything about it online. The last time they had anything listed was September, but I saw a notice for something going on December 8th. I'll try and find out more about that. We'll put it on the website or something if you're interested in going to a safety fair. That's it. That's all I have for announcements. Is there anything anybody else has for us?
We're still looking for net controls for the ham and eggs net. It's pretty lonesome out there for net controls. It isn't for attendees, but...
And I told you I was going to try and do it, and it hasn't quite worked out in my favor yet. Let me see if I can't get out there and get on there and help out with that.
The more the merrier. Anybody else that would like to help us out, we'd appreciate it. So.
There was my president's message thing in the newsletter. I mentioned things that keep me up at night, and one of them is that I worry that people don't understand about these volunteer efforts and things like this for Elmering and other things. You don't necessarily need to have super experience or anything else in doing these kind of things. If you want to get involved, get involved. The Ham and Eggs Net is a great way to get involved. You can learn how to do net control for a net. That's a good skill to have. You can create your own kind of net thing. This was created by Mike Neal a couple of years ago, right? About a year, maybe a year and a half ago or something. And he just had this idea. He wanted to put it together. He set it up and got, let everybody know he'd be using the repeater. And I guess that was, you have to kind of approve those kind of things, but it's not like you'll get told no. And he set that up, and it's been going ever since. And it's been useful. Like it's been said here, people have actually joined it. We get a lot of participation on it. If you want to do something like that, or if you want to do something else to help out the amateur radio community, or be involved in some way, there's not like a real special way to do that. Come up with an idea, let people know, we'll get support for it, we'll get something going. But I worry that people are not doing stuff because they think, well, I don't know what needs to be done. Just bring it up. We'd be glad to talk about it.
Also in January, every Wednesday in January, we'll be holding a training session.
That's right. I keep forgetting to put that on there. We do have a tech class coming up in January. It'll be every Wednesday in January. The test session following that will be the first Wednesday in February. And that's all held out at the normal place at the Sheriff's office on 12th Street. And that'll be, what, 7 o'clock?
Probably
6 o'clock to 8 o'clock or something. Yeah.
And I need volunteers to teach.
We do need volunteers to teach. I'll be helping out with the teaching. I'm sure you'll be doing some. If you want to help teach that class, please contact Mike. He'll take your information down, and you can help. There again, you don't have to be any kind of a subject matter expert. The books and stuff that we're using are great books. They're very easy to understand, and it's a great experience to be able to teach the information, and it keeps it all fresh in your mind. It's a really good way to help out in the radio community.
Christmas dinner, is that at 5 o'clock?
Yes. Yeah, sorry. 5 o'clock for the Christmas dinner. I had to write that down on there so I don't keep forgetting it. And we'll go till everybody's done eating. We've
got some fine prizes too.
Yeah, we got together as a board. We talked about a few things. One of them was getting some prizes together. We did order up a bunch of stuff. It might be at my mailbox yet. I haven't checked, so I'm going to go up there this afternoon and get stuff. You'll really enjoy it. There's some good stuff. I don't even remember. I guess I could look in my email, remember what it was that we ordered, but...
No surprise.
Keep it a surprise.
Keep it a surprise.
Okay, we'll just keep it a surprise. We did get some really good prizes.
Yeah, we really went all out this year.
We're still waiting for one of them to come, but it's on its way, so it'll be here within a couple weeks. It'll be here in time. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. We've got some fun things going that way. So Christmas dinner is at 5 p.m. There we go. Okay, so I'm done flapping my gums. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mel Parkes, and he's going to give us a big, or I don't know. He's going to give us a nice presentation on the ARRL, which is really good.
David. Appreciate it. It was about 2 months ago that I got a call from Gil. He said, "Hey Mel, how'd you like to come and do a presentation for the Ogden Club?" I thought, like most of you guys have heard me talk about ARRL before, because everywhere I go I talk about ARRL. I thought, is there anything new or different that I could present that might be of interest to you? But whenever I do a presentation, I like to cover some of the basics about ARRL, because there's always some newer hands in the audience, and we want all of you to feel like, even if you're not a member, ARRL is there to support you. Because ARRL is the national organization that represents all of the amateur radio community. And they've done an excellent job over the years in doing that, in promoting amateur radio. And I think every one of you in this room, in one way or another, have been impacted by the benefits of ARRL. If you've ever taken a class, you've probably used one of the ARRL books. Or if you've wanted some knowledge about a specific subject or topic, you've probably reached out and found one of the books that ARRL has available on many different subjects that are available. That they have an excellent library. I know one thing your club can do if you're interested, for a small fee, and when I say small, it's around $150, $200. ARRL will send a complete library of every book they've got to your local library. So if you wanted to do that, you can negotiate with ARRL on getting that done, and they can provide a library of all the books. And that way, you folks can go to the library and check out the books instead of having to order them or have them for your own self. Either way is a great thing to do. And ARRL is a very unusual organization in the fact that the members have a great say on what happens with ARRL. And many of you may not realize how important or how much of an impact your feedback to the headquarters has on policy and different things that are happening. I'm going to talk a lot more about the ARRS Connect program and the ARRS strategic plan, but I just want to mention a good example. They're going to put some training requirements to all ARRS members who want to participate in ARRS, that they have to meet certain levels of training. Now, one of the levels of training was 2 different ICS courses that are very in-person intensive, because you can only take the course in person. And after a lot of feedback from people just like you to the headquarters who sent concerns about this, on how difficult it was to obtain those courses, ARRL and the leadership at ARRL have decided to drop that requirement from this new strategic plan. And the plan hasn't been approved yet. It's still under development, and it's going to be voted on in January. So, that's a good example of how this position you hold as a member of ARRL is. And I know that there are people who are not ARRL members who have reached out and made comments to ARRL, and they've respected their right as a ham to make a comment, and they take that forward. A big area that happens, we've got in ARRL, it's organized throughout the country, not necessarily by state, but by section. We have 71 sections throughout the United States, Puerto Rico and Alaska, and some of the territories. The thing that's interesting about those 71 sections, they're a geographic area that's been designated by the hams in that area. Fortunately for us in Utah, we have, our section is our state. So, and the same with the outlying states in the Rocky Mountain area. Then the next level up in organizational management for ARRL is the division. And we're all members of the Rocky Mountain Division. And that division consists of Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. And as we put the announcement up here that Pat brought this morning about the Rocky Mountain Division Convention, once every 4 years, Utah gets to host that event. And this was a very interesting challenge for us, because we did a large ham radio convention down in Salt Lake about 2 years ago. And it was very well attended, and we were very impressed at the response and the turnout that came from it. In fact, it was so good that it exceeded our expectations, and the venue we had was very difficult to support all the attendees. So we began a search of where to do the next ham radio convention. And it was obvious we couldn't use the Salt Lake Community College facility because it just didn't meet our requirements. And we looked at a lot of places. We looked at some of the big convention centers, and everywhere we went, these people were very, very proud of their facilities, and they have a wonderful price tag that they like to pass off to you. And it just became so far out of our reach that we thought, we're just going to have to go back and just limit the number of people who can come to our event. And out of the blue, I had attended an event up at Weber State, another convention of a different type, and I thought, why not try? And so I talked with Marvin Natch about it. He reached out to Weber State, and they really opened us with, they opened up to us and said, we want you to come. What can we do to encourage you to use our facility? And every question we had, they just had all the right answers. We were surprised at all the space that was available to us. The prices were reasonable for an event of our kind. And one thing that really surprised us was the cost of using their dormitory rooms that we can make available to all of the out-of-town people at a very reasonable price. It's going to be somewhere in the range of about $25 a bed space And when you compare that to on the local hotel chains, you can't beat it. And that will be a wonderful opportunity for our out-of-town guests who want to come, or even those who don't want to spend a lot of time on the road traveling back and forth. And so we've got that set up. I passed out a handout on that. That's going to be the 8th, 9th, and 10th of August. On the first day, it's a Thursday, and right now we have DX University scheduled for that event. I'm working with Daryl Hazelbrun to get some more details on what presentations will be made. Because of the nature of that event, and because it's just one event that we have to cover the cost of the facilities, there's going to be a charge for that, and we think it's going to be around $30, $35 for the DX University. For those who are DXers, I've attended this event before, and it's an excellent opportunity to improve your skills and learn more about doing the things that we love about that part of our hobby. We've been leaning towards doing an ARRL-type workshop. There might be a fee that we have to charge for that, but we haven't committed to that yet. And during Friday and Saturday, we'll have approximately 36 to 50 different seminars that will be conducted all during the day. We have many vendors that have expressed an interest to come. Unfortunately, we haven't got commitments yet from the real big vendors, which we all would like to see. But we've got some really nice vendors that will come and have their neat stuff available for us. And we'll promote that event as we go on. So I'd like you all to spread the word. Make sure that you share with other hams this event is coming. And it's in your backyard, so I'd like to reach out to you. I think some of you had the opportunity to sign up on the sheet this morning about that event. If you'd like to participate, we are looking for people to help. Don't feel uncomfortable about volunteering, because we have all different kinds and levels of volunteers that we want. It can be nothing more than just a host who's going to be sitting close to the room, welcoming people to the one seminar you might be a host for, and you'll just make sure that people come into the room are seated, and if there's any concerns that the presenter might have, you'll be able to address those. Or it could be all the way up to being a chairperson of a specific committee for door prizes, or helping out with registration. So any support would be appreciated. And if you didn't get a chance to sign up, Pat will have the list up here up front after the meeting, so please consider signing up to help. Another big event that's coming up next year, how many have been to the Digital Communications Conference that's been held in Salt Lake in the past? Only one. Well, that's two. You know, I can speak very highly about that. It's a very, very well done conference. It's a Saturday-only event. It will be held down at the Larry Miller campus on 92nd South, Salt Lake Community College. And John Jacobs, who lives down in Lehigh, he does that event. He's working with some organizers to make it happen. And they cover all different aspects of digital communications, but they're adding a special track to it this year for new people who haven't done very much with digital, or new hams that might have an interest in something slightly different than the main subject matter. So there's something going to be there for all of you, and I'd encourage you to come and learn more about the digital communications aspect. There's so many things that are coming on board about digital communications that we need to jump on board. And you know, I was with another group that have been driving me nuts about getting on DMR, and I've never done much with DMR. And so I got a birthday present in the mail, and it came yesterday, and I've got a new DMR radio. My wife didn't know she was giving me that birthday present. I was real pleased to receive it from her. Just for numbers purposes, some of you may wonder, how do we as an Ogden Amateur Radio Club fit into the big picture in Utah and into the big division that we have? You know, in Utah, we have over 17,000 hams. It's a large number of hams. Many of you may not have realized there were that many in Utah. Our numbers are slightly inflated because we do have a very wonderful religious institution in the state of Utah that promotes ham radio, and many of you may be helping out with your local church in supporting the groups that do that. We also have a lot of hams in Utah that get their license, and unfortunately, I blame myself, and I think many of you may want to look at yourself and say, what have I done to help a new ham stay with the hobby? Because we have a big turnover in Utah. Our licenses are good for 10 years, and in Utah we have a cycle. About every 10 years we have a large number drop out. So we have a lot of new hams that come into the hobby and a lot of older hams that have had their license 10 years and they drop out. So we need to reach out to those folks and really encourage them to stay on board. I'll bet you anything, if you were to go through your test sessions that you have, I found most test sessions you'll have maybe 10 to 30 people take a test. At least half of those people probably will never come to your club meeting. I don't know why that happens. We probably need to do a better job at reaching out and saying, look, yes.
Go ahead and finish.
Yeah, I was going to say, we need to reach out to those people and just be at the test session and invite them to come to your club meeting. I think if you would do that, you'd double the size of your club in less than a year and a half to 2 years. Go ahead.
My thought was when we get new hams, especially in the church radio system, that we tell them to get mobile radios and not handheld. Because most of our nets are simplex. And if they're out in Clinton or someplace, sometimes the handheld doesn't work. So I always tell everybody to get a mobile, not a handheld.
And there are a lot of very good mobile rigs out there. Some of the inexpensive ones that do just as good a job as some of the more pricey ones. But that's an excellent suggestion. The other thing is, I think if you encounter some of these hams that get their licenses or aren't very active, you can go and do a search on QRZ for amateur radio operators that live in your zip code. And if you go home and do that on QRZ and find out how many hams live in your neighborhood, you'd be amazed at how many live in your area that you don't know anything about. And I'd encourage you to reach out to those people and say, hey, we're having a Christmas party and we're going to give away a lot of neat stuff. Why don't you come and join us? And, you'll find people that are just waiting for somebody to invite them, somebody to help them get on the air. And that was a very interesting thing I saw with another group I was working with. They had set up a special group in their club, and every person who gets a license is given a card that says, come over to Mel Parkes' house on Thursday night, and we're doing a net, and we'll let you see how a net operates, and you can watch how we operate the radio. And they have on the net a first timer's minute. And if you're a new ham, you get to make your first contact on the net. And ARRL on their site has a first contact certificate that you can download and present to this new ham that made his first contact. So it's a neat way to get a new person on board, give them a little piece of paper that tells them, hey, we care about you, we want you to be part of our group, and how can we help you become more proficient now that you have your license? So these are all different things that you can do as a club and a group. And, when was the last time you had a brand new ham in your shack? Has it been a long time, short time? Some of you may do it more often than others, but, this group, and I find this everywhere I go, all of us are getting shinier tops and grayer tops, and we need to get some more of the fine-haired, dark-haired, blonde-haired, whatever you want to call it, young ladies and young men into our group. And I know a lot of people that they just are really sold on this radio that they use, and they don't realize it's a radio. But we need to get them to understand that we have a different kind of radio that is more interesting and can provide more opportunities for them. So it's a really interesting chance for you to interact with these people. One benefit your club has directly, financially, from being involved with ARRL. Most clubs, the membership in ARRL is about 50%. Some are more, some are less. But if any of you are not an ARRL member, I would encourage you to consider joining ARRL through your club, because your club gets to keep $15 of your first time dues that you pay to ARRL. And if you haven't been an ARRL member for a few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, if you sign up again, the club will get to keep $15 again. I don't encourage people to join for a year and then be inactive for 3 and then do it again. But ARRL wants to encourage people who are former ARRL members to come back and be part of the program. It is a bit of a financial commitment because it's $49 a year. I know Dave mentioned he signed up as a life member, and you don't do that because it's a better deal at our age. You do it because you care about ARRL. And I think that's really an interesting opportunity for you to get some money to come back into your club by encouraging people to join ARRL. Those who are very consistent that renew every year, your club can also capture $2 a year every time you renew your dues through the club. So there's an opportunity, you know, if you just had 5 members, you know, a year join ARRL, there's $75 that you can put buying more prizes for your Christmas party every year. So it's an opportunity if you'd like to do that. We have a new division director. Our Rocky Mountain division director, Dwayne Allen, had stepped down recently. Many of you may have read about that in the announcements that ARRL puts out. And Jeff Ryan, our vice director, has stepped up into that position. And he's also appointed a new vice director that's another person from Colorado. So they've reorganized the division now. And they were very, very pleased to hear about us organizing our event at Weber State University. I went to the one with a few folks from Utah in Albuquerque this last summer, and it was a fun event. It was really a nice event. They have a fine venue down there that I'm sure would be out of our reach, but they had the opportunity to use a big convention and casino center on one of the Indian reservations down there. That was a very, very nice venue, very well done. And of course, New Mexico did their turn. Now it's going to be our turn. So that was very interesting to do that. You know, these 13 division directors are elected every 3 years, and they go and represent all of us at the 2 meetings a year that the directors go to, that they determine policy and guidelines from ARRL. There will be a meeting in January that they'll be voting on this new area strategic plan I mentioned. And our division director represents you. And if there's a concern you've got about some rules or regulations or anything that relates to ham radio, please look him up in the QST magazine that you have, or you can send him an email. Go to the ARRL website and look up your division director. And Jeff will welcome any kind of concerns or comments you've got about anything that's going on with ARRL. These 13 directors go to this meeting, and those 13 directors pretty much vote on all of the issues, policies, and concerns that are held by ARRL. Those of you who may or may not know, ARRL is our advocate to the FCC when it comes to determining whether or not we're going to keep all the frequencies that we've been given. And I handed out the little frequency chart to all of you. That frequency chart represents what ARRL is doing for you. It's all those frequencies are available to you. And having been a broadcast engineer in the commercial television field, I want to share with you just for a moment. You look at that chart, you look at all those different frequencies, and all of the microwave frequencies that we used as a TV station and our main broadcast frequency for our Channel 14 where I worked, we paid $10,000 a year for our broadcast license and $5,000 a year for every microwave frequency we had. And we had TV translators that were like our repeaters, that they relayed the TV signals. Those licenses were $1,000 a year. I know your club has, is it 4 repeaters? Yes. 4 repeaters. So that would cost you $4,000 a year just to have those frequencies. And then if you start talking about simplex frequencies, it goes out of the world on what it would cost this group to have those frequencies for the purpose of supporting your group and your community. So it's a real financial benefit to us to have the ARRL as our advocate before the FCC to defend and keep those frequencies available for amateur radio use. I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to see some of the changes that are going on with ARRL rules and guidelines, but how many have read the publication called the Strategic Plan? Not very many. I'd encourage all of you to go home tonight. I know your Aries group and your club are two separate groups in Weber County, and that's all right. But how many of you participate with Aries? About half of you. And I'd like you to go home and just Google ARRL or Aries Strategic Plan and read through the plan. It's got a lot of very interesting new comments. The plan was developed by a committee or a working group that was a number of these directors and vice directors that we elect, and they sat down and developed a plan with inputs from many different Aries groups throughout the country. And as they developed this plan, they were looking at ways that we could help keep Aries as a viable entity in our country. And I don't know how many of you may have heard of this, but I was talking with the emergency coordinator up at ARRL, Mike Corey, about this, and he had also presented about how fine a line we had to maybe losing Aries as a program. The Aries program is recognized as being there to respond in a disaster. Well, we had a number of very small hurricanes a few years back that they didn't need to use amateur radio help. And I've seen the same here in our state. We've had some minor disasters or things that have happened where fires where they don't really need amateur radio help. And the mindset among federal people was, why do we need ham radio? Why do we even need them? And then we had an interesting hurricane happen called Hurricane Harvey. And it completely wiped out Puerto Rico. We had a lot of hams in Puerto Rico, many hams. They're one of the sections in our ARRL community. None of them were able to support amateur radio communications because everything they had was lost. The Red Cross and the federal government got together and reached out to Mike Corey at ARRL and said, how quick can you get some people on the ground in Puerto Rico? And he took some time, and this was a Friday night. He was able to contact 50 hams. He had 25 of them ready to go. They didn't have any equipment. He contacted different vendors that supply amateur radio equipment. The ARRL headquarters staff got all this equipment put together over the weekend. They had 25 cases of equipment ready to go, and these people were all dispatched to the Atlanta airport, and they flew down to Puerto Rico to start the process of providing communications. And it was interesting to see what happened in that event, because many of the people who went there were called out because of a special skill they had. It was not just that they could operate on amateur radio. They knew how to do things like repair amateur radio gear. They knew how to build an antenna, an HF antenna or a VHF or UHF antenna. They had all the skill set to do everything that was necessary. They knew how to work with generators, and so they reached out to a special group of people. It was interesting, the special group of people was not Aries people. It was the DX community. And the DX community has a habit of being able to do all those kind of things. But they found in the amateur radio community people that could support this critical event. And these people got down there, and the first thing they found is they couldn't use their amateur radio skills because they couldn't get to the communities that were needing the communications the most. The first thing they had to do was learn how to use chainsaws. They had to learn how to drive jeeps to those locations, cutting their way in to the communities that were cut off from the world. So our skill set may go way beyond being able to hold that radio in our hand or sit down at a desk and operate as a net control. And it was very interesting to see how this small cadre of ham radio operators started the healing of that whole, area where they had lost everything. And the ham radio was recognized as one of the critical elements that brought that back. And because of that, the federal government started to say, we do need ARRIs. And this is where they started giving some thought to what do we need to do to change ARRIs. And here's one thing that happened. ARRL was approached after this event, and they were asked a question that ARRL couldn't answer. How many ARRIs members do you have in the United States? They had no clue. They couldn't tell. Because we have local ARRIs groups, and they function very well. But there's no accountability as far as who's a member of ARRIs. Because there's only two requirements that have been in the past to be an ARRIs member. You have to have a license, and you have to want to be a member of ARRIs. That's the only two requirements. ARRL has never put out any other requirements for ARRIs to be an ARRIs member. And so they felt a strong need to develop a new program on how are we going to keep track of our ARRIs members, keep track of what they're doing, and provide guidance to them on what is expected to help them improve and develop skills and talents that are much more needed in our amateur radio community. As a result, they came up with this new idea called ARRIs Connect. And it was a process where they did a beta test on it in one of the larger ARRL sections, and it worked very well. The ARRIs Connect program is a unique program that it's a registration process where each of you as ARRIs members will be asked to register. And I want to make a comment here. I know in various communities throughout Utah there's been different feelings between the ARRIs groups and some of the clubs. I would reach out to your ARRIs groups if you're not a member of ARRIs and say, look, I haven't done a lot with ARRIs, but I'd like to register with your ARRIs group and just list me as a new ARRIs member. Because I think it will help keep your community in a position where you have assets and resources in the way of amateur radio operators who are skilled to support whatever event may happen. And this community has a classic example of how important it is to have amateur radio support because of the Riverdale flood. That happened many years ago, and many of you helped, I know you did. And when that event happened, we didn't think it was going to be a very challenging issue. But after the first 72 hours of continuous operation by a few good hams, they realized, and we realized, we needed outside help. And outside help came from the outlying counties and communities to support this area. And so the ARRIs Connect program will start off with a new process where the ARRL Section Manager and the Section Emergency Coordinator will become administrators of the program in our section or our state. And we, in turn, ask all of the emergency coordinators in each of the counties to become administrators for their county. And all of the ARRIs members will be given an invitation by email to sign up with the ARRIs Connect program. And when you sign up with that program, you'll get this invitation where you fill out a form that asks a number of questions about your activity in ham radio, what your license level is, some of the background about participation in different groups or activities. And all that will enter into this database. And then what happens, how this works in functionality, the state level and the county level can enter activities into the ARRIs Connect database. And it's like a calendaring system. So you could go to the calendaring system and you could look at, oh, we're having a public service event in in Ogden, or we're having a event over at the Syracuse area, and that event will be listed. And if you want to participate in that event, you can click on that event. It'll notify your emergency coordinator for areas in your area, and your time will be recorded on that. He'll verify the time, and all of your activity will be kept track of in that system. The system also is an email system where if we need to reach out to all the area's members in a specific geographic area, we can email those people in that area and tell them we've got an event going on and we need support and help. So you can be notified via email, and we can do that at a state level where it goes to everybody in the state, or a county level where it goes to each of the people in the county. We're trying to work with that right now because there are some little glitches with how that works compared to a normal e-group. The e-groups that we have right now that are established can pass on large documents, pictures, and graphics. The Aries Connect email system doesn't do that the same way. You can link it to a website or another location where, like Google Docs or something like that, where you can pick up an existing document. So we're looking to get more information out of that as we go along. Let me see here. Many of you were talking before the meeting about the testing session of the class you're setting up. And the ARRL testing group is the largest testing group in the nation. More hams have come through that testing group than any other. There's other ones out there that are on a smaller scale, like the W5YI is another large one. When I got my general class license, I got it in Alabama through a special group down there called KVEC, and they're a group from that area. That's the Central Alabama VE group. And each of these groups help determine all the questions that are put into the question pools that are developed for the amateur radio testing. So all the VE testing is a very interesting group that you can work with. I was asked before the meeting, yes, go ahead.
While you're talking about VE, is ARRL going to come out with software someday?
You're hitting on a very sensitive subject, but no. You know, I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't promote, but I have been telling most of the groups when they ask that question, go to W5YI. They have a better program than ARRL has.
Well, that's what we're currently using.
And I've talked with the ARRL leadership about it many times, and they are seriously giving some thought to it finally. It's on their agenda this January to talk about it. You know, their biggest concern was the security issues. You may or may not know that W5Y had some security concerns in the early days when they became involved with doing it, and they've got over those. They've found the solutions, and they're doing a great job with their testing session. I've been to the ones that are done both ways. They both end up meeting the same goal, but I see so many advantages to using computerized testing versus the old paper way that I just really feel strongly about.
And that's what our club has set up. I mean,
yeah. You've done a great job with that. In fact, I think you were on doing that over all the other groups in the state of Utah. You've done a great job with it. Yeah.
Hamstudy.org also does it online with their testing thing, and I don't know if the ARRL is aware of them doing that. I'm pretty sure they are, because I think he said something about him having tried to convince the ARRL that they should go that route. But instead of reinventing the wheel, it might be useful for them to look at that as maybe partnering with people that already have the software to do it.
They are actually having discussions with W5YI right now. I don't know to what extent they'll follow up with it. Knowing the way that ARRL has some concerns about it, it might not happen overnight, but there's serious consideration being done to doing that. I would, let me just say this. You guys have one of the better groups of doing computerized testing. I shouldn't say this, but I think all of you ought to send an email to Jeff Ryan and encourage him to consider promoting the, computerized testing. He's in the QST. His email address is in there. It's just his call sign. It might not be a bad idea to give some thought to that. because I know Jeff's on board with me on this issue. I talked to him about it quite a lot. And I told him, I said, Jeff, if there's one thing you can do during your tenure as the division director, it would be nice to see if you could get ARRL to come on board with Computerized.
You know, we're so limited in what we can do with VE funds.
Yeah.
I mean, let it build up forever, and use it to buy books to study with. Our club opted to buy computers.
Yeah, and I think that's a wonderful approach to using those funds, because a lot of groups, you know, you're not supposed to let them build up a whole bunch, but if you're going to use computers, why not buy some nice laptops or whatever computers you'd like to use to accomplish that purpose? And you've really done, I just can't say enough about how neat your group is, because I came to some of your early test sessions when you were doing that, and I was really impressed with the way that worked.
It's a well-oiled machine now, I think, and thanks to all of these in the room that handle
and you know, I do have the credentials for ARRL and W5YI myself, and I've assisted with both groups testing. There's a group down at the University of Utah that asked me to come and help with their testing, and I do that 2 or 3 times a year. And you know, it just really drives me nuts. We have 15 people in a room, and it takes us an hour and a half to get through all the forms, because you've got to go through each individual, checking every test. And it just really impressed me when I was able to stand behind a person taking the test, and he raises his hand. 3 of us come over. Are you done? Yes, I'm done. You push the button, it scores the test. Oh, here's your score. All of us look at it. Let's print out the form. All of us sign the form. We're done. It's that quick. And the other way, it just takes at least 15 minutes per examinee to get through that testing process. And I can't think of, you know, here we are, we're supposed to be on the leading edge of technology. We're the hands, we're the guys that invent this neat stuff, and we can't even develop a good testing program. Yeah.
Along with that, Mel, I'd like to, along with Rick, give a lot of credit to Jason. He did the tech stuff that got us going in the beginning, because without his help, we wouldn't have gotten all the bugs ironed out that were in it, you know, so.
Well, it took a lot of work, and I really recognize your group for doing that. There's some other groups in the state that have started doing that now too, and it's working really well for the groups that adopt that. So, again, it's another area that ARRL can improve upon, and I'm sure they will over time. It won't happen as quick as I want it to happen, but it will happen. Any other questions about VE testing? Thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. I mentioned the Connect program and what we're doing with that. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the concerns I've heard from many hands throughout the state. They asked me about the legislation that's going on with the Amateur Radio Protection Act. And it's not going to happen this session. It might next session. But we have one problem, and it's the senator from Florida. He's against it. He's a member of a big homeowners association, and he's going to always fight it. We have realized in the process of getting this legislation through, our legal representative, Chris Emley, has encouraged the process to not follow the normal process where you create a bill that goes through and it has to go through committee and it has to go through this. They have a special process by exemption, and you present a bill like our Amateur Radio Protection Act, and it goes to the floor and is voted on by exemption. And there's no real vote held except for anybody opposed to this. And there's only one person opposing it. And I've heard all kinds of really rude comments about how we can take care of this. But we won't discuss that. But I think over time, if we keep trying, we will get this Protection Act through. In the meantime, we still have PRB1. And PRB1 is a result of our ARRL helping us get PRB1 on the books. And for those of you who may not know, PRB1 is a document that was published by the FCC that actually says amateur radio operators are supposed to be given reasonable accommodation to set up a amateur radio station and antenna. homeowners associations don't agree with that, and they don't do it. And that's what this Protection Act's all about. I have found one thing, though. No matter where I've lived or what circumstances I've lived in, if you come across as a good neighbor and a good citizen in your community, it does wonders for getting you privileges you might not otherwise. When I first came back to Utah from Alabama, I lived in North Salt Lake in one of these apartment complexes that were 4 apartments in a block. And I really wanted bad to get on the air again because I've been working on DXCC. And I talked to my landlord about putting a 40-meter dipole up on the top of the roof. He said, no, we'll never do that. And, I just thought, there's got to be a way I can work with this guy. It just didn't happen. And he came and asked me a question a few months later. He said, what kind of radio do you use? And I said, well, right now I'm using a Collins KWM2 because it's the rig I've got. And I really enjoy using it. It's a fun rig. But I'd sure like to get back on the air. He says, a Collins? You're using a Collins? I said, yeah. He used to work for Collins and he was retired. And he wanted to come and see my radio. So we got talking about the Collins equipment. And he said, I'll tell you what, Mel, let's do this. He said, I want to show you something. He said, I've got some work I have to do up in the attic. He said, bring your wire with you. And we put up a 40-meter dipole over the top of 4 apartment complexes. Mine was in the middle. And I ran the feed line down to the basement where my rig was. And he helped me do it. And you never know how you can get through to somebody on doing something like that. Yes?
Yeah, I had, 5 years ago, I moved into an HOA community, and I found out one good way to solve that problem. I became the treasurer on the board, so I have no trouble with doing what
I had
I
a
do.
similar situation when I moved to my house I presently live in Layton. They have restriction in that community as part of the covenants and restrictions for that subdivision. And it basically says no exterior antennas except for TV and satellite. And I got looking at it and I thought, oh, it does say you can apply for an exemption from these rules. And so I sent a registered letter to Ivory & Company. I got no answer. And they were the company that managed that company. And so I started calling around. I called Ivory & Company. And they called this committee, the Architectural Control Committee. I said, I sent you guys a registered letter and got no response. And he said, oh yeah, we don't have anybody on the Architectural Control Committee. Would you be interested in serving on the I said, I got it, I'll do it. And the Architectural Control Committee approved my request. But these are things that you can find to get around it. I found we've had a lot of really great hams that are retired. They have to live in a home where they, are very senior and they're wanting to continue their skills. We had a ham radio operator down in Bountiful that was in an older folks' home, and they welcomed having a ham radio station in their facility because that meant if they ever had an emergency and the communications capabilities were out, they had a way of communicating outside of their facility. And that ham for years ran his radio and did nets out of that facility. And it was a great opportunity for that ham and also the group hams in his community who came and helped set that up. They got the fire department to come over and they put up a little tower and put up a vertical antenna for him, and they put up some other antennas. And these are all things that we can do to work with our community, even though there might be some limitations on what we can and can't do. And so I know another thing that Gil mentioned to me before was what can we do about, we call them the rogue operators. And there's one thing that's happened over the years, and I look at rogue operators come in many different flavors and categories. We have a lot of people that are buying these new Malphone radios and the Chinese radios, and they're a neat radio. They're very neat because they're cheap. If I break it, I can throw it away and buy another one, and I'm still not out much. But a lot of people are buying them and not realizing that they're not allowed to operate on the frequencies that we have. Now, how should I treat that person that's on there, doesn't have a license, doesn't ID, and it's quite obvious he doesn't have a license, and he gets on and I hear him on my repeater. He's on your repeater here in Ogden on the 9.0. What should I do? Should I get on there and say, hey, look, buddy, you're not licensed. You're not allowed to be on here. I got to thinking about what Gil talked to me about. And, you know, like I said, there's very degrees. If the person's a reasonable person, I would engage him. Some people say, don't even talk to him. Don't even engage them. But why not? Why not engage them? And say, hey, look, this is NM7P, Mel Parkes. I'm a member of the Ogden Amateur Radio Club, and we have a really neat meeting every month. How about I come by and pick you up, and I'll take you to the next club meeting, and if you'd like, I can help you get your amateur radio license. Wouldn't that be a lot better than telling the guy, get off our frequency, you're not allowed? Get off my lawn. Yeah.
Yeah, as I understand from those Bellfang radios, just to get one program where you can talk on it, it's a major technical.
It is to some people, but I'll tell you what, my son got his license a while ago, and he was one of these guys that got his license and doesn't do anything with it. And he got hired at IHC, and he worked for IHC in the computer security department. And they found out he had a ham radio license and said, would you like to join our club? Well, I didn't know this, but IHC, every ham that joins their club, they give them a free dual band radio. He gave a nice rig. So he came to me and said, hey, they gave me this neat rig. And this is the one thing about some of us that are more experienced, that don't have some of the same skills that younger people have. He said, I sat down with it in 15 minutes. I had every repeater programmed into it in the state of Utah. And I said, how'd you figure that out? Well, it wasn't hard. I just sat down and looked online, found somebody that had some instructions on how to do it, and I did it. Well, I've tried doing that with some of my radios, and it is challenging. It's not as easy. But I find younger people really can adapt to that well. Some of us that have different skill sets don't adapt to it as well. But these radios are challenging to program. It's something that I've seen can be a great opportunity to do in a club meeting. Sit down and get somebody that really knows how to do it well, and let's get all the programmed radios programmed. Teach me how to do it. Show me what I need to do. Let me bring my laptop, or let me be shown how to do it, and then I can go home and do it on my own computer at home.
Yeah, well, the point I was trying to make is for the guy to just get the radio and on his own program it, people use it shows the technical skill.
Yes, it does.
Desirable.
Yes. And you know, go ahead.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Sure.
At the VHF Society swap meet, they're closing down. I bought this Riverdale radio for $9, and they said it through TMR or something. And then at the Digital Communications Conference, they're still selling these, and I didn't even take it out of the box for months. But my son bought a set of these, but they were Bofang, and we went down to Topaz Mountain and we used these car to car. And then when I got home, and this Riverdale was the same as his Bofang, identical units. And so I got home, and then the ARRL, the FCC says that these are not FCC approved and they can't be used. And so those of you on the Yahoo group, we've been talking about this for months. And so these apparently are not legal to transmit because they're not FCC approved. So is that on the agenda in January?
It's being discussed. I'll tell you what, I heard a presentation at that at UARC the other night talking about how some of these Chinese radios emit spurs that are outside the notch that you're supposed to be in. So you're actually transmitting multiple frequencies of intermod that's causing problems. And they don't have as stringent requirements as the FCC has with other vendors in China. So, you know, there's a concern there, and we need to be very careful about how we look at that. I have looked at some of the concerns about using radios. Is it legal or illegal to use? You know, FCC type accepted is the term that we're supposed to use on the radios that have met the FCC standard. Many of those radios are not FCC type accepted. Now, here's one thing I want to ask you, a question, and this is a very good hypothetical question you would deal with the FCC. I haven't done this, but I know many have. How many have built their own HF transmitter? Is that FCC type accepted? Do you use it? The important point here is we're amateur radio operators, and we are prone to experiment with our radios. So you're using a radio that's not FCC type accepted, but you're the control operator. You're responsible for that piece of equipment to operate within the frequency spectrum that you're allocated to use. And you're responsible for any spurious tones or spurious frequencies that come out of that. So I would say those of you who have the equipment that can check that out, by all means, verify how it's operating. I'm going to say this, and this is another one of those gray areas. If I use that radio that's not FCC type accepted, does that mean the FCC is going to be knocking on my door tomorrow saying, Mel, you bad person, you were using that radio and we're going to fine you and take your radio away? It's never going to happen. They're more concerned about the people who are doing very egregious type of activities who we're going. I'm not saying that gives you permission to do these things, but I am saying we need to use common sense and good judgment in how we use our privileges and how we use equipment that might be questionable. There's nothing wrong with building a radio of your own and operating it, but the biggest concern the FCC has is not so much the fact that these are being used, it's that the manufacturers are building them, and they're building them outside of the standard specifications that we want to accept in the United States. So that's the concern. They're going after the vendors, not after the hands that use them. Yes?
There's been a lot of discussion about that online, and my next president's meeting message will talk about that a little bit and some of the stuff I found out. But there is something to note, however, that not all Baofangs fall outside of the requirements. So the BF F8HP is not FCC type accepted, but the BF F9V2 Plus is, and they're the exact same radio.
Yeah.
So you just have to make sure that if you want to buy the Baofangs, and they're the same price. One's not more expensive than the other. So just make sure that when you look at them, that you're looking at the ones that are type accepted, or check your transmissions and make sure you don't have the spurious emissions, that kind of stuff. And you should be okay. The FCC is not going to come knocking on everybody's door that ever bought one, but it is technically currently illegal to use them, according to, I wish I could remember her name, which is one of the enforcement attorneys at
She's
the
out of the
FCC.
Denver office. Sarah.
That's her. Yeah.
Smith, is it?
Yeah, that's her.
Sarah Smith. Yeah. And the FCC wants really bad to do what they can with the resources they have. But from the days of Riley Hollingsworth, who had a team of very aggressive enforcement officials, to the personnel they have today, they can't do all the things they used to do. I'm going to give you some good examples. I talked about the different flavors of offenders who are breaking the rules. There are a few that have been really hit hard by the FCC. I know I'll get his name mixed up, but I think it's Dick Crow. He is a extra class ham radio operator. He's in California. He's an attorney, and he's been maliciously interfering with nets for many years. And he's very rude in how he does it. He uses all kinds of profanity. He plays music on his radio to interfere with the nets. And he does it on purpose because he knows he can fight the FCC as an attorney and take them to court, and it'll drag out for months and months. And a good example was they finally decided to take action and remove his license. And when you have a court case pending with the FCC, you can't remove a person's license until the court case is settled. So his license was frozen for renewal 10 years ago. They finally took action and have removed his license. But during the time, even now, when they were asking for him to file a letter, he asked, and this is showing some of the kind of attitude these people have that do this kind of stuff. You're allowed to write a 15-page rebuttal to the FCC. He wanted to have something like 25 or 50 pages to rebut the FCC action. And of course the judge ruled against him again, but he's just always looking for ways to delay the process and interfere with the government doing what is appropriate. And you know, his group, he has a little group of guys that do it. They also interfere with the Friends of Amateur Radio net. They call it the Farm net. And they're a bunch of really great people. I participated in their net before. Most of them are black hams. But he would get on their nets with his friends, and they would do all kinds of very rude statements on their net about black people and their relationship to where they came from and everything like that. It was just terrible. And they finally have taken action against these people. And the kind of fines they're getting is $15,000, $25,000 fines, suspended jail sentences, and stuff of that nature. How do we deal with those kind of people? It hit Utah really bad because they started using one of our amateurs' call signs illegally to ID with. The call sign they were using was K7JL. Many of you may know that to be John Lloyd's call sign. And you know, what can you do when that happens? And in those kind of situations, the guidance I've got, I've had a chance to sit down with Riley and talk about these kind of things because I asked him, what would you have recommended back when you were in FCC enforcement? And he said the best thing to do is to walk away. Those people thrive on people coming back to engage them. And so the best thing to do is, if you're running a net and somebody's trying to interfere with it, just say, I'd like to thank everybody for checking in tonight. We're closing net tonight. We're closing early. Close the net. And if you have capability to send email out to your people, you might want to say, let's QSY to this frequency and just move to another frequency. That doesn't happen very often in Utah. We have had a couple of occasions. Do any of you remember Disco Dave? He was a ham in Salt Lake. He's since passed away. But he would get on the 6.2 repeater in Salt Lake. And he would play his guitar. And he just loved playing his guitar on the frequency. He wanted to be a disc jockey. And he couldn't get hired. So he decided ham radio was the way to do it. And, you know, we were able to track him down to his house with some of our people that helped do that kind of activity. And we were able to engage him and say, look, we're going to turn in a formal report to the FCC. That slowed him down a little bit, but eventually he did get a notification from the FCC and he stopped doing it. And, you know, that's the most egregious activity I recall happening in the state of Utah. We do have a few people that will interfere with a net where they'll get on and they'll send out a tone or they'll make rude noises while the net's going on. And the best thing to do is not even acknowledge that you heard what they did or said, because, you know, just press on. I know I participate with the Utah Beehive net. Do any of you participate with that? The Utah Beehive net occasionally will get somebody that come on and interfere with that net. And most of the net control officers in that net are so well skilled at it, they'll just move right along and not even let anybody know that the guy's causing any kind of interference. So that's really a good way to address those kind of issues. And if it happens here in your area, if it's continuing to happen, Our official observer program has changed. It's no longer the official observer program. They call it the volunteer manager program. And it's the same program, just a new name that ARRL is designated for it. But the volunteers are ones that can help you. I would say I know your group here, and I know if there was an issue going on, many of you may have participated in fox hunts, and you can pretty easily figure out where the offender might be if they're continuing to be on the air. And you can do a few things. You know, if you narrow it down and you figure out, hey, Mel Parkes is the guy that's getting on our net every time and interfering with our net. You know, the most accurate way to do it, don't do anything on the air. Go to my house, come and say, hey Mel, we've heard you getting on the air every time we're doing the net. You're interfering with our net. We know it's you. Please don't do that anymore, or we'll have to turn in a formal complaint to the FCC. And the best way to do that is go through ARRL, through their VE group, and you can document what you've done. A good example to do is write down specific times. You know, the one thing that is not going to help you at all, and I've verified this with the FCC, don't make recordings. The FCC can't use your recording in a court case. They have to have their recording with their enforcement officials because they are the ones who have to prosecute. And your recording can be misunderstood as to how you obtain that recording. So you can make a recording if you want to say, here's what's going on, and it might help show the officials up the chain that this is an activity that's very, very egregious. But at the same time, you need to address those issues in a formal manner of going up the chain through the channels to the ARRL and then up to the FCC. The ARRL has a very good conduit to the FCC, and they can get a lot of things accomplished if there's something going on that needs to be addressed. Any other questions?
The FCC actually prefers to work that way. They like working with the ARRL because the relationship there is, if the FCC has to hire more people and go out and do it, they'll become more draconian in the way that they do it. But the ARRL, like you've been saying, Mel, they want to go out there and engage these people, because sometimes it's just they want to get involved or they want to do something, but they don't know the appropriate way or the proper way, or they just want to be a little bit of a troublemaker or whatever. But engaging them at a lower level where you're not the jackbooted thugs coming and knocking on the door is sometimes the best way to go. And so we have a good relationship with the FCC in doing that. They work with us very closely on that. It's a nice way to keep more things free.
Yeah. So. And you know, we've seen that in our area. You know, I had to laugh because very shortly after I was a section manager, I had some concerns about some of these issues like this, and I had the chance to interact a lot with Riley at different functions I was at, and I sat down with him at dinner one night, and we were talking, and I said, Riley, I'm really, really concerned about these issues that are going on in Utah, and I explained to him a number of the issues that I got. He smiled and said, Mel, if that's the only issue you've got, no cause. We, for the most part, have really good hands here in the state of Utah. They're a very dedicated group. We're all very conscientious and concerned about meeting the requirements to support our clubs and our emergency groups. And there are a few rare exceptions, but if we need to address them, we can in an appropriate manner. And that's another part of ARRL. We have a really good way of helping every group become better and more proficient at what they're doing. You know, your club is one of the oldest ARRL affiliated clubs in the state of Utah. I believe it was somewhere in the 1930s that you affiliated.
25 or 26
is it 25 or 26? I know UARC and you guys are always having interesting discussions about who came first. It doesn't matter, but I really recognize the fact that both clubs have been around for a long time. They've supported amateur radio for a long time, and they've been very, very beneficial to the parts of the state that they serve. And I would like to thank you as a group for being an affiliated club for such a long time. It shows a dedication to supporting the ARRL organization, and that you're committed to doing the things in amateur radio that make us all better. I didn't bring them with me, but have you all seen how you did at Field Day? You guys had a good group that went out to Field Day. It's not a contest, but it is. I know there were a number of groups. There's a new club down in Utah County that are a really aggressive new club that's growing real fast, and they have the potential to become the largest club in the state of Utah. I hear different stories. I go to their club meetings, and they always have 75 to 100 people at their club meetings. When they first came to me and said, we want to become affiliated with ARRL, I said, well, how many club members have you got? I said, oh, we have 500. I said, really? I said, that's great. I said, show me your club roster. Well, we don't have a club roster. It's all the people who signed into our Facebook page. That's our club. Well, that's neat, but I said, okay, if you want to affiliate with ARRL, I've got to have your club show me that 51% of your members are ARRL members. And they struggled with that for a long time, and then I came up with a suggestion that they agreed upon, and they, for 3 meetings, they had everybody who attended their meeting sign in and check a box whether they were an ARRL member. At the end of that 3 meetings, we figured, yep, they've got 51% of their attending members as ARRL members, and those attendees became the club, and that's how we were able to affiliate their group. But I'm guessing they're up in the range of about 250 or 300 active members, because they rotate a lot, and they're going to do a Ham Fest in 2020, and they're going to do it at Utah Valley Community College. So that'll be another thing to put on your calendar down the road to be involved. They also did a swap meet down there in their area. It was a fun swap meet for their group, and because there hadn't been a lot of activity in Utah County, it was one of the neater swap meets I had been to, because there was lots and lots of really neat junk there. They had all kinds of stuff. They had oil forms, and they had tubes, and they had old radios. They even had some old TV with little round screens, and they had a really good event. And I take my hat off to them as a new group, but at the same time, I really appreciate your group. I know over the years you've had some very interesting meetings. The first time I attended an Ogden Amateur Radio Club meeting was when you were meeting up in North Ogden, and this guy, Dave Fisher, gave a presentation. I don't know if any of you remember Dave Fisher. He had a PhD in RF engineering, and he got up on the board and he started putting all this calculus on the board and showing us how antennas worked, and it just went right over the top of almost everybody in the room. But Dave is a really neat guy if you can pull him off to the side and have him talk to you without using any math. But, you know, he was my first experience with this group, and he was a very avid supporter of the amateur radio. He moved to Missouri, and he lives out in Missouri right now. Big DXer, really big into CW. But, you know, it was interesting because he got caught up in the transition when we were transitioning from code required to no code. It was very disappointing to him that we moved in that direction. And the one thing that I was concerned about myself, because when I got my novice license, I had to pass the code. It was quite a challenge to get 13 words a minute, but I eventually did that. But the thing I've learned more about Morse code that has affected me and that made me more aware of how neat we are as an amateur radio community. How many here use Morse code? Half a dozen. Did you know that Morse code is one of the fastest growing activities in ham radio now? A lot of people have decided, well, now I don't have to do it, I think I can learn it. And it's fun because I use it a little bit. The thing that embarrassed me the most I was working on DXCC, and I got this really neat card from a station in Africa, and I've never worked any station in Africa. And it said I'd used CW, but I know I hadn't. So I had to not put that country in my list of worked countries. Even though the guy wanted me to respond, I had to. It wasn't in my log, it was just a guy trying to get a contact in Utah. DXing is sort of fun. I don't know how many of you do it, but, you know, how many here have HF privileges? How many have made more than 10 DX contacts? I would encourage all of you who have HF privileges to get on the air. We talked a little bit earlier about the group that was going to Montserrat. I don't know how many of you know it, but one of our own hams from Utah is going to be there. Do many of you know Rich Fisher? He's been around a long time. Rich is going to be one of those hams. And I was talking to him about wanting to make a contact. He said, Mel, if I hear anybody from Utah, they're getting priority. So if you want to make a contact, look that up in the list of DX activities that are going on, and you can talk with Rich and make a neat contact for a country you may not have got. But I'd encourage all of you with HF privileges to make a goal during the next coming year to try and do 10 more DX contacts. It's a fun event, it's fun to do. It's just like I was talking about field day. We all went out to field day that did. One of the impressive things about Utah to me, we had almost as many home stations as we did clubs and groups. And some of those home stations did pretty darn good in field day. So if you're a little reluctant to go out with a group on field day, do it from your home and turn in your score. You might find your name somewhere in the list of fun people having a good time at field day. And where did you guys go for field day this time?
There it is. Riverdale Park.
Riverdale Park. I know I went to visit a number of the different clubs this time. I didn't make it to your group, but I went up to the UARC group, way up on the Mount Nebo Loop, Payson Lakes, and I went to the UVARC group up by Strawberry Reservoir. And the UVARC group, I was going to say this about them, the Utah Valley Amateur Radio Club in Utah County. They had a fun group. It was their first field day, and they had, I think, almost the second or third highest score in the state because they were excited, they wanted to do something. And I think over the years, some of that enthusiasm tends to wane a little bit with some of our groups. So if you're involved with a group that's doing field day, if you don't want to go for the whole weekend, go for a few hours and just get on the air and do some contacts. Here's another neat thing, if you haven't been on the air for a while, go and participate with the GOTA station, the Get on the Air station. It's a fun event. You can use it to get back on the air and enjoy yourself. And I'd encourage everybody to use your amateur radio privilege that we have, that we get from the FCC. I'm in the process of working on some legislation in the state of Utah that's trying to limit our ability to use handheld devices in our vehicles. And I can see some wisdom in what they're trying to do. They're trying to stop people from driving down the road and texting. How many have seen that going on as they're driving down the road?
Yeah.
And you see the guy wandering a little bit in his lane, and you know what he's doing, you know what she's doing. And they're trying to discourage that kind of activity. But at the same time, the way the legislation is written, it would oppose us to using our amateur radio equipment in our vehicles. And I'm working with one of the police chiefs that's firmly trying to work with this bill, and he's given us the latitude to try and get some kind of a statement in there. They're very reluctant to use the word amateur radio because they feel if they identify one group as giving some kind of an exemption, because right now the only exemption in there is for police or public safety officials or emergency responders performing their official duties. So as volunteers, we're sort of excluded from that exemption. And I asked, couldn't we put a one-liner in there that excludes amateur radio operators performing public safety duties or emergency service duties as we're required to, as we're called upon to do. And one thing in doing some research on this, we as HAMS are the only organization in the United States that we're required to have a license to use communications equipment. Your police station, your fire station, none of those members of that organization have a license to use the frequencies they use. The entity, the government entity, has the license. It's an organization that's licensed, not an individual. So we have a special privilege because of our licensing capabilities. And I was explaining that to this person. He stopped and thought for a minute. He said, you know, Mel, you're right. It's very, very different that you guys have a privilege that nobody else has that does emergency communications through commercial means or government authorized means. So we're hoping to get something break loose on that before the legislation session begins. The sponsor of this bill is Carol Spackman Moss. She's a Democrat from Salt Lake. And I've interacted with her before. Last year she was trying to get this bill through and it failed. I don't take any benefit from it failing, but I was asked to speak on behalf of the amateur radio community at the legislative session, and this was in the Transportation Committee. And I explained our amateur radio community, what we do, the events we work with, and the things that we do. And one of the members of the Transportation Committee, after I was finished, because I said, does anybody have any questions? It was just dead silence. I thought, well, at least I've had my say. He said, Mr. Parkes, stop a minute, I'd like to ask you a question. Tell us some of the activities your ham radio operators do that benefit our communities. And so I started to raise big public events like, the Hill Air Force Base open house, some of the big fireworks displays, just some of our local community events that we help with. And then I explained how we had a significant role in the Elizabeth Smart Search and how we've done many different activities supporting disasters and events. And he said, thanks a lot, Mr. Parkes. He said, by the way, my call sign is KE7SD. And then they tried to put it to a vote, and they were really trying to get this to come out of committee so it could go to the floor for a vote. And one of the people that was very supportive of it said, I think we ought to postpone this and not vote on it until we have more time to look into this amateur radio question and have the bill modified to address the amateur radio position. And some of the people that were pushing the bill really hard overrode that request and put it to a vote, and it failed on a vote of 5-3 with 4 of the committee members not present. And they're really going to try hard this year to push that bill through. And I think we will have some wording in there that I would support the bill. In fact, I mentioned in it that I was supportive of the bill, but I can't accept it the way it was written. And so I still support making our public highways safe, from making it so we can't let people drive down the road with this. Now, I look at the bill right now, it's called a distracted driving bill. And I look at the bill the way it's written right now, and it's sufficient. But the biggest concern is texting. And that's what they're trying to do, is enhance the existing bill by eliminating any form of texting while people are driving down the road. And I fully support that. Any comments or questions about that?
No, Mel.
Yes.
I got a little part-time job where I'm driving around town, Ogden, 100 miles a day. It's amazing how many people you see with cell phones through their ears, especially the stoplight.
Yep.
I'd like to make an overall comment. I think what Mel just described is a pretty good example of what ARRL does for us, because Mel's ARRL, and without him, we may have gotten the bill passed that would have been a real problem for us. So thank you.
Well, I don't take credit for it. I think there was more other issues that were addressed there, but certainly we have the opportunity as HAMS to enlighten our constituents. if this would have got voted out of committee and gone to the floor, the next level that we would have done as ham radio, I would have emailed all of our ARRL members and clubs to ask everybody to call their elected state officials and oppose the passage of the bill the way it is presently written. So that is something that I feel honored to represent you in the capacity I have as the elected ARRL official in the state of Utah. If there's no other comments, yes, go ahead. I'm here to ask.
Is it written now, you said?
The bill is already on the books.
It's not?
They want to modify the bill to add more specific language to address texting. And as the way the bill is written, it doesn't address the amateur radio exemption. So I've decided I would like to see us address some kind of an exemption for amateur radio. The police chief I'm talking with that has a lot of input on this bill, he was very reluctant to put amateur radio, and he was trying to say, couldn't we say volunteer emergency communications people? And I don't mind that would work, but I would really love to see something that says FCC licensed amateur radio operators.
Yeah, licensed operators.
Everywhere I go, I get the same comment. So,
Or just
On that
FCC
same-
license.
On that same comment, there's an article, I think, in this morning's paper on that bill.
it was on the news the last few weeks. KSL's been talking about it on their talk shows, and there's a lot of controversy on it even now because there's a lot of people who feel you're taking away my First Amendment rights to communicate, and it's inappropriate that you do that. And it's just the same with all these other people that have differing viewpoints, and everybody in our country is entitled to their viewpoints. And you'll find that there will always be people that oppose that. I look at it more as I feel very concerned about the safety of my family and friends on the highways, and this distracted driving issue is a concern. I would say this also, and I know I'm just as guilty as the rest of you. How many times have you picked up your handheld and changed frequency on your handheld while you're driving to a different repeater? We have. We should be very conscious of the fact that we have a special privilege, and if we really need to do something like that, it might take 5 minutes, but pull off to the side of the road and change your frequency. It might be challenging if you're in a hurry. Give yourself 5 more minutes wherever you're going. I'm preaching to myself more than you, but but I think that's important, yes.
You didn't have this problem until the advent of cell phones. How many PAMs were in accidents prior to?
I don't have a good answer for you.
Yeah.
But I know, let me be very honest with you. I know I've done things with my amateur radio equipment in my car that after the event happened, I thought, boy, that was a close one. How stupid of me. We've done it. And all I'm asking is, let's be very conscious of the fact that we have a special privilege, and let's use that privilege and not abuse it. And if we do get an exemption from this, you know, how far do you draw the line on what you're doing? Because should we make it so that we only use our equipment in our vehicle while it's moving when we're doing something related to a public service event or a emergency event? You know, I can interpret that a lot of ways.
Here a few years ago, I worked on public station.
Yes.
And this lady was talking on her phone. She wasn't even texting. She was talking on it. And she made an improper right turn. She turned into the oncoming traffic. She made 2 different turns that turned completely into the oncoming traffic. And she's just talking. She's holding the phone up there. She's oblivious. So she's not even texting.
You know, it was interesting because during that hearing, there was one comment that was made by the people opposing this kind of activity. They said, how far do we go? I am distracted when I reach down to change my CD in my CD player. I'm distracted when I change from one radio station to another on my car radio. And I think all of this boils down to using some good judgment, common sense in what we're doing. Drive like you want other people to drive to protect your safety. And do the same when you're using your ham radio equipment. You know, it was interesting, I had a discussion with the DX community about this issue. And they said, well, when we're doing DXing while we're driving down the road, we're providing a public service. I said, really? Well, I'm helping other hams get their DXCC. And, you know, you can bend the rules if you want. Yes, Gil.
I just have a comment supporting what you're trying to say here. We all hold other officials, if you will, to a higher level or a higher standard. A police officer, fire department. As licensed radio operators, we should hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we should live up to that. And I think that's what you're trying to say. We need to set the example and be more responsible than those that we're seeing out there. And that will go a long way towards helping us not only get but maintain any exemption that we may get. We need to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Appreciate that comment. I really appreciate the opportunity I've had to chat with you this morning. You know, I'm open to any other questions about ham radio or anything else if you want to have a chance to ask. Don't hesitate to contact me. You can call me at home or on the email. I'm going to be out of town all next week. I'm going down to St. George to be with my daughter's family down there. Did everybody get a ticket that came in for a drawing? I got 3 little goodies to give away.
Not everybody just turned in the other half of their ticket, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we take care of that and we get those tickets, the last few tickets turned in, or get someone with that needs a ticket.
Oh, question.
Okay, we.
Another question.
Yes.
My license expires in 2020. How do I go about renewing that? Who do I contact, or when do I?
Well, let me tell you one thing. ARRL, as a benefit to members, will renew it for you. All you have to do is call up their VEC office.
Oh, what is that number? You don't know it offhand?
It's 860-594-0200. And that gives you a menu, and you'll click on number 5, which is the VE office. And they've gone one step beyond that. If you're not an ARRL member, they will do the renewal for you. And you can just call them up and say, hey, this is Mel Parkes, my license expires in a few months. Can you help me get it renewed? And they can do it all over the phone for you. You don't.
Within 90 days.
Yeah, they'll send it out. Now, there's one thing that's changed on the VE form, and I don't know if they're going to require you to fill out the form. They ask a specific question. It's a legal question that I've been told has no impact at all, but they ask if you've ever been convicted of a felony. I asked a very specific question to the VE people about that, and they said it's just a data collection thing they're doing at the present time. It's one of the rules of the game. It's a block on the new VEC form 605 that must be checked. I don't believe they've been asking people who call up to renew about that question. But I just want to make people aware that's a new question that's on the VE forms.
Isn't there also a link on the Real Club website? It's hard to find.
On your Ogden Club website?
Yes.
I wouldn't know, but you know, you can find the forms, yes. And you know, if you just do a Google on VEC 605, you can get that form to come up. That's a current form. The problem when you do that Google search, you've got to be aware that ARRL is a VEC, W5YI is, there's a number of them, and you might pull up any of their forms unless you're specific on saying ARRL or W5YI. And I think W5YI will help you do a renewal also. I don't know exactly how they do that process, but one thing to keep in mind that you may or may not know, if your license expires, it goes into an inactive status for 2 years. And you can't operate, but you don't lose your privileges until the end of a 2-year window. And if you're in that 2-year window, you can still renew your license. And I've helped a few hams who just didn't even think that it was time to renew their license. So if you haven't looked at your license for a while, you can go and pull it out and look at it. And if you don't have a copy of it, go on to QRZ. It tells you the expiration date. The FCC database does too, if you want to navigate that database to find your call sign. It is a bit challenging to get there, but you can. Yes?
You could also, I just found out the other day, I looked at my license and found it expires next year. But I can't renew it yet because they only give you a 90-day window before your expiration date.
Yes.
So I have to wait till March before I can renew mine.
Yeah. So, you know, when you enter that 90-day window, you can go through that process. Because I've seen it work so well for all the people I've helped in the renewal process, I would encourage all of you, just call the ARRL VEC office and tell them you'd like to renew your license. And they do that really well. I've had a couple of older hams that just have totally spaced out the fact that their license is expired, and I've called up ARRL, and I've worked with them with that guy on the phone with me, and they've immediately renewed their license and it's active the next day. So it happens pretty quick. And it is another good benefit that ARRL provides us. Any more questions? Thanks again for all you do as a club and a group and as individual hams. You're a great group of people, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, we've got just a couple more quick things to go over real quick before we do this. Does everybody have a ticket? Anybody not with a ticket? Okay. We do have I have two real quick things, and then Jerry wants a minute. Do we have any upgrades or new members with us at the moment today?
No.
Okay, we got a new face here.
Calvin Adams.
Calvin Adams. Your call sign?
AE7PW.
Okay.
My name's Tim, KE7POA. I was actually a member of the club in 2005 and moved back to Utah, so I came to see what's going on.
Fabulous. Glad to have you guys here. The other thing we have is Steve Kmeyer. You remember him from our club? His key has gone silent. He, if you remember, he went on vacation. He was telling us about going on vacation to Hawaii. And while he went to Hawaii, he had a massive heart attack and passed away. His funeral was Monday, this past Monday. We, as a club, I believe we sent him sent his family some flowers. But I thought you guys would like to know.
I also sent a hard copy of the last newsletter.
That's right.
With his pictures in of the cover letter, so they'll have that as a reminder.
Thank you for that too. Okay, Jerry.
3 quick items. Anybody wishing to renew their membership, I'm taking money, and I have the forms. Anyone who has ordered a name tag, I have a whole bunch of name tags here. So if you've ordered and paid for a name tag, come see me after the meeting. Third thing is anybody who wants ARRL forms, I have them in my briefcase, so stop by.
Yes, sir.
Dave, I think you were going to ask if we had any volunteers to fill Steve's position.
Oh, that's right. I'd written it down and I left that paper in my backpack. So because Steve Kmeyer was a member of the board, he was the activities director, we are looking for volunteers that might be willing to take that position until August when we do the elections again. If you are interested in volunteering for that position, please contact me. If you would like to volunteer someone else to take that position, please contact me. Otherwise, it's up to me to be able to appoint someone, and I would first contact you before. We're not going to Shanghai you into the position, but we really would like someone to take advantage of that and volunteer to help us in that capacity. So if you know of someone that might be a good fit, or if you yourself believe you'd like to help us out in that capacity, please contact me, and that'll help us out. Thank you. Okay, we have this
I got 3 giveaways.
this drawing.
We got a grounding and bonding book, fairly new book. We got a little fun game book, and an Aries field manual. So whoever is drawn first, come up and pick whichever one you want.
I'm taking this
Good.
one.
Poland rank.
I actually I'm writing another presidency message right now about grounding in a mobile situation. So it would be good for me to read over some of that, because I'm not sure if I've.
Just don't pull your name out.
Yeah, if I can't make sure.
You bag long enough.
Let's do this first, and then I'll we need who's not in here. Everybody's got a ticket, so we don't have anybody abstaining.
I'm not in here.
Oh, you're okay. So we'll let Mel. That way, we have someone drawing that doesn't have a stake in the game.
John Barron. Bernie? You can have the grounding and bonding book. Or if you want one of these others.
Pass that back. That might just be faster. There, we'll just pass it back to you that way.
Is that the one you want?
Okay. Steve, KG7BIK.
Okay.
like the Aries book.
Okay. There we go.
Send that right over to you.
Thank you.
And number 3.
It looks like Laura Lee Gardner.
She likes puzzles.
That's she. Well, you might have to help her, because it has some ham radio goodies in it too. And I'll tell you what, for the 2 new guys that came to the club meeting, I've got a goodie for you.
2 from Yesu.
Thank you.
And one for you.
Yesu koozies.
Yeah, I like that radio. Yeah.
Okay. If there's anything else, if not, thank you for coming. And don't forget, next month is the Christmas dinner. I think we'll be sending out a reminder at some point to everybody's email about the Christmas dinner. But if you've seen some of the other operators that aren't here today from the club, remind them. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think, and we usually have a pretty good turnout, and the food's usually really good. So thanks for coming. Oh.
On the Christmas thing, if we each bring a not a white elf one, or some small gift, then those who aren't members or wives or someone can have something too. It's more fun than.
So you remember how we do the auction at the steak fry? If you didn't get rid of some crap that you really wanted to get rid of, you can bring it to the club.
Or you can get some nice stuff too.
One of the neat things about the party last year, I went to the party and I won this little bag of coal. It was licorice. And I took it home and put it under my Christmas tree, and my grandkids have never forgotten that Grandpa got coal.
Those kind of things are a lot of fun. If you want to bring stuff to have it put in and given out as gifts, please do so. We encourage that kind of thing. It's a lot of fun for the paid members, for the non-paid members. There's a lot of kids that come in. They get gifts. My daughter got something last year, so it's a lot of fun. So please come, bring some stuff if you want to. Don't if you don't want to. But it's always a great turnout. It's always a lot of fun. So thanks for coming, guys, gals.